Now, how long did you work with Milton?
Maybe 5 or 6 years. And I'm proud to say when I was working with Milton, I bought my first upright bass, which is this,
Mm-hmm.
my very first, from the estate of Wilby Fletcher's family.
Really?
Yeah, I was seeing Wilby back then in the casino days, and he said, my late uncle was a bass player, and I'm pretty sure he's got this bass in this storage area somewhere. Call my mom, she'll hook you up, which is what I did. And this particular bass, which is to this day is my main bass. I've had other basses, but this has kind of been the main one that I like to play. But it was standing up in this storage locker, covered with a sheet, caked with dust, and got it cleaned up. Started. Really didn't have time to practice. I just took it one night to Atlantic City, was trying to play it with Milton, and I did okay, but I was kind of struggling, but I was able to play it.
How long did it take you to make the transition from the
Electric to the upright?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question, because sometimes I feel like I'm still not transitioning, but in terms of proficiency, I think that's the whole point of practice. You just want to continue to, I wouldn't say necessarily get better, which is how people usually refer to what they're trying to do, but just to be a little more sensitive to yourself and the instrument. Because I'm to a point now where I realize I don't have to play as hard
Right.
or with as much pressure to get the same effect. So that's kind of what I strive for, just being a little more sensitive to what the instrument has to offer and how I can kind of express myself through the instrument.
Now, is there, just explain to me in your own way, the differences between playing the upright and playing the
Electric? Mainly it's just a physical thing. Um, I can say, having played the upright for a while now, it's so much easier to play the Fender because it's a smaller instrument and it takes less effort manually to do things.
Okay.
But fingering's the same, slightly different position in which you play it. But and my electric is a 5 string, so that's a little different.
Okay.
Got to get used to the low B, but and I love that low B, by the way, because being a bass player, I'm trying to. I like lower tones. I don't understand some guys who play 6 string basses and call themselves bass players.
Uh-oh.
No offense, Jason.
I don't play the 6 string.
Okay, cool.
Upright only.
Hey, there you go. But they're playing like up in this high register, and I'm like, well, why don't you play a guitar if
Yeah.
that's what you like? But yeah, those low, broad tones, that's really kind of what drew me to the bass. And I was a little skeptical even about soloing because I'm thinking, well, I'm playing more notes than I normally would. I'm not necessarily utilizing that broad tone that's what drew me to actually playing the bass.
Right, right.
But you get used to the challenge and you learn how to, when I can use broad tones, I do, and if I need to do some really fast stuff, you get used to it.
All right, I'm gonna move on. How did you meet Odean?
If I'm not mistaken, I think I met Odean through Eddie Green.
Oh,
Yeah, I met Odean back in the I think early '90s. He was getting ready to do the Montreal Jazz Festival and needed a bass player. I don't know. I didn't even ask who was playing with him at the time. But
right.
I made a rehearsal at the Mill Creek Recreation Center, and we went up to Montreal. I did the gig and experience for another time.
It might have been Tyrone.
I'm thinking it might have been,
Tyrone
but
was his main guy for a while. So
yeah. But I did that, and then I don't recall working with Odean again until, oh man, I guess after the Tyrone era,
Okay, yeah.
and that's when Odean started calling me a lot, and once again another challenge. Not just the music, and the music was a challenge. I'm like, wow, it's like this never ends. You never become complacent with jazz because there's always something different to learn, something different to interpret, and to realize that there's jazz gives you an opportunity to make a personal statement. So when someone gives you some, what I would call crazy music, it doesn't have to be that crazy unless you want it to be crazy. So that's kind of what I found fascinating about Odean's music, even though he kept calling me. So I'm thinking, wow, this guy, he kind of likes me. So I've done at least 5 or 6 CDs with him, and they're all kind of different. And he always has good musicians. He's kind of got a local rhythm section that he usually works with, but he's done stuff. I've done tours with him with Jeff Tain Watts and what's the guy's name? Carter. James Carter.
Okay.
Great tenor player. He plays all the reed instruments. I did a tribute to Max Roach with Odean, where he featured, I think it was a 3 or 4 night series, and he's got, because it's a tribute to Max Roach, he's got different drummers each night. So one night he's got Jeff Tain Watts, the next night he's got Jimmy Cobb, the next night he's got Chambers, oh God. I keep thinking Philly, like
Right,
Roland
right.
Chambers and Carl. Yeah, no, Chambers, Joe Chambers.
I think, yeah.
But he's always associated himself with pretty
Yeah.
well-known musicians.
Now, so you still work with Odean, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Now, how is working with Odean different than like Milton or Mongo or?
Different type of music. Odean.
What's he like as a band leader? Let me ask you that.
Boy, you just saw my face,
Yeah,
right?
this is for history's sake.
Odean can be a little obscure in the way he communicates. So I like to consider myself almost like a consummate sideman when I'm working in that situation, because I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to figure out what it is you want from me besides this music that you gave me.
Right.
Odean will he'll give you something that he wrote out. It's usually kind of sketchy, so it's not a piece or a composition. Just like maybe a couple little lines here and there. And he'll basically say, wow. He'll just kind of want you to look at what he's done, but then see what you can do with it. So,
And then you bring it back later, or you rehearse it right then?
no, right there. No, it's just like, and it's so funny because I kind of brought Tom Lawton into the
Yeah,
situation,
he's still there.
and I have to laugh at Tom because he always looks at me when Odean is trying to convey something because he's like, Lee, what? But then we've kind of gotten used to that situation, so we I don't want to say internalize, but we just kind of do what we can do, and then Odean will either like it or doesn't like it, and he'll express that he wants something different, and we'll just kind of keep working until
Keep feeding him different.
yeah, and then eventually it works out.
Now, did you bring Tom Lawton into Odean's group? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great. I love hearing you guys. 'Cause
Well, he had, and I don't want to mention a bunch of names, but he had a guy who played piano with him for a couple years who I personally felt didn't really lend what he was doing to what Odean was trying to do.
right.
And I brought it up to Odean because there were a couple times when we were performing with a guest artist, and Odean always has good guests. You know, James Carter, Ravi Coltrane. It could be anybody. But there was, I think there was one night at the Blue Note where we're playing a ballad, and the piano player just wasn't playing the changes. And I don't think it wasn't because he couldn't. It just wasn't his approach.
Right.
And he has the right to do that, but I just felt I didn't feel comfortable playing with him, and I just felt it wasn't really supporting what Odean was trying to do. So we had a talk, and I said, I know a guy who I think you'll like because the way he thinks would probably kind of work itself into what you're trying to do, and that was Tom.
That's interesting that your empathy. It seems like you have an empathetic response to kind of get into Odean's head and figure out the way you feel that he might want his music to sound like,
Mm-hmm.
and make that happen.
Well, because when I'm playing, even when I'm not a leader, I feel like it should be a good presentation. And if someone isn't really representing kind of what I hope might happen,
Right.
I just feel it. You know, I may feel, I don't want to say humiliated,
Right.
but when you feel like you're not really connecting to the audience, you just feel like there's got to be a better way. So, and it had gotten to the point where Odean was really kind of respecting my opinions, and that's why I went to him and we had a talk, and he agreed with me. It took a minute, but then he realized what I was talking about, and he said, Lee, I think you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to switch to another long-time band association with Trudy Pitts. Let me know, when did you meet Trudy, and what were the circumstances, and all that association over the years? And what was she like as a band leader?
To be honest, I don't remember exactly when I met her.
Okay.
I think it was during the time when I might have still been working in Atlantic City,
Okay.
but on the weekends, Trudy Pitts had this weekend gig at a place called the Majin,
Oh yeah.
and they needed a bass player one night, and they called me, and I did it, and I guess she liked me, because eventually she and her other half, Mr. C, kept calling. Great experience. Playing with Milton Sealey almost kind of conditioned me to play with Trudy Pitts. Playing with Milton, I'm learning a lot of material, and I'm learning that you have certain freedoms. So when I started playing with Trudy Pitts, I'm still learning new material because there's tons of standards, and then actually some pop tunes have become kind of like the new jazz standard.
Right.
Certain things I learned from Trudy, like I would always play to her left, because sometimes she would play something I didn't know, and she would just say, "Lee, follow my left hand." So I'm playing and I'm looking at her left hand and I'm seeing that she's playing certain notes, and sure enough, I got used to that. Even when she was improvising, I could look at her, or sometimes I could hear when she's kind of playing an alternate chord or alternate phrase, and I would actually play along with her, as opposed to just playing the changes. That's what we say in, in musical
Right.
genre, just like playing the changes. Well, there are changes, and then there are alternate changes. And it got to the point where I felt like I was almost like, what do you call it? I was really kind of contouring my approach to her approach, which made it even better
Right.
musically, because she could do certain things and I would just go with her. And what was so funny, every now and then Trudy might miss a bar or miss a couple beats. I would actually go with her and miss the same beats just to stay with her.
Yeah.
And we would laugh about it afterwards, because she was like, "Lee, you actually heard what I did?" And I was like, "Yeah, I heard." And I felt like, for the sense of continuity, I had a choice. I could either keep playing the rhythm with the drums or go with you. And I chose to go with her.
Now, what was it like playing with Mr. C and Trudy?
Musically, I love playing with Trudy. Personally, I never felt secure working with them. I always felt there was something looming that I couldn't quite. I always felt like they wanted a different bass player. Yeah. And then I'd wonder, whatever it is they're looking for, why don't they call this person? Because I've got the sense that there was some question about what I was doing, but nobody ever said it. Oh, well, Mr. C used to, he was quite critical, so.
Well, yeah, with a lot of people. Do you have well, since we're going to move on to, now how many years did you do the Cosby Show? You Bet Your Life.
I didn't do the Cosby Show.
Oh,
I
okay.
did the before the show aired. They actually had a recording session
Right.
where they recorded some of the music that was played during the show, and I played on some of that.
I thought you were working with them when they did because they always had a spot on the show.
That was used to play with Shirley Scott and
Oh, Arthur Harper.
Arthur Harper.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did you did you play with Trudy?
About 9 years.
Really?
Yeah, it's a long time.
And was it usually a trios or?
Usually a trio, and then during the Sunday brunch, they would always have a guest artist. And they used to have good guest artists. A lot of times come down from New York.
You're talking about the Meijing?
Yes.
Yeah.
That whole 9 years? That's,
Yeah.
that, wow.
I remember that gig.
Yeah.